You like me now. You want beef, then have a call. Huh, looks like bling blow, ayy. Yeah, you can't hold me down. Yeah, how you like me now? You want beef, then have a call. Huh, looks like bling blow, ayy. Going up, going up, going up, going up, yeah. Going up, going up, going up, going up, yeah. Going up, going up, going up, going up, yeah. Going up, going up, going up, going up, yeah. Going up, going up, going up, going up, yeah.
Hello and welcome everybody into another edition of the Sun Solar Panel. Whether you're watching us on the Fox Sports Arizona Facebook page, the Sun Solar Panel YouTube page, or listening to us wherever you get podcasts, we appreciate you being along with us. I am your host, Greg Esposito, ahoy hoy, and joined as always by a man who seems more fascinated with the Jumbotron than the actual game going on. He is Dave King. Dave, how are you?
You have no idea how big that thing is until you see it in person. Dang.
And that's what. Okay.
That's what
We're
she
not-
said. That's right.
I was gonna stop there, Dave. Jeez.
It's Saturday morning, guys. Let's
Family show. Come on. Cartoons are on.
just save that for
Cartoons are on.
save that for Wednesday night's Sun Solar Panel After Dark. All right, and another guy on the show that is I don't even know where to go with it after what just happened. I had a whole introduction, but he's Carmel Thunder. He is Saul Bookman. Saul, how are you, my friend?
Oh man, it is an early morning for whatever. You know how some mornings are just earlier than others? I literally woke up at 3 o'clock this morning and could not go back to sleep. And when I finally did, I had a nightmare that I had passed out at this desk, preparing for the show. And it was 8:30 in the morning and you guys had replaced me with Tim again. So that's how my morning started off.
That sounds like a nightmare for everybody listening, not watching, not for you. No, we love you, Tim. Always will, always have. So, with a lot to talk about as preseason. I always say that, but there always seems to be a lot to talk about when it comes to the Phoenix Suns, and in particular right now, as since the last time we talked to you last week, the entire preseason is over, gentlemen. We've seen the entire dress rehearsal for the Phoenix Suns, and that means we've got some questions about this season that we're going to have to talk about. Then we're going to do a new segment called Tweet or Delete, and we're also going to, as always, imagine this, and we may even have time for some flaming ball or mail sack. So that's kind of what is coming up today on the show.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be fun. It's going to be really fun.
Yep.
I'm excited. Dave is the only one that's actually been to the arena in person, risking life and limb during this pandemic to watch a basketball game. So
yeah, I figured that was actually good to go during preseason because there'd be the least number of people possible there, and it was a good call.
Let's be honest. Dave basically could have sat at home for what he did on Friday night.
Oh,
Yep,
for sure.
absolutely. I
Game
could
on the Jumbotron.
Yeah.
If you sat real close to your TV, you would have the same effect, Dave. That's all I'm saying.
You apparently have a small TV. Okay.
Well, let's get into it. We've got 5 burning questions coming out of the preseason that we need to figure out here and address. Right? There's a lot of things that we need to know about.
Before we even get to that, what about like just our overall impressions on the preseason? Like,
Saul just likes to grab the wheel. I'm
sorry.
No, we can do
Jesus.
I will step back. My bad.
We can do our overall impressions. What was your overall impression, Saul, of the preseason?
You know, I'm starting to feel like the preseason's much like the NFL preseason, where it's just kind of pointless. Now, I know this preseason's a little bit different because there was value to this because of the truncated preseason and how quick we got to the preseason from the postseason. So I understand that there's value, but man, it's hard for me not to watch these games and be like, but they don't mean anything. So I don't like really get invested, and I don't care about blown leads, and I don't care about, I just want to see players, get back into a rhythm, get back on the court, build that chemistry. Is it there? Is it not? What needs to be tweaked? What are they changing from game to game? That's basically all I care about. I don't really care about runs. I don't really care about how the other team plays. I don't really care about how they play against us. Like, it's all going to be different in the regular season.
Okay, I agree with that in theory, but Friday night, the fact that after 3 quarters, LeBron and AD got theirs, right? I mean, they both were showing why they're superstars in this league. And
Sure.
The Suns still led by 1. To me, that meant something because the Lakers were playing AD and LeBron regular season minutes in those first 3 quarters. And even without Chris Paul, the Suns withstood the best that those 2 guys had to give and were leading after 3. So to me, that has some meaning, right? That shows promise. Now I get not analyzing runs in the fourth quarter because you're playing guys you're likely not going to see much in the regular season, but to me that meant something Friday night.
I liked what I saw Friday night. I liked the energy that the team was playing with, especially obviously in the first 3 quarters, because in the fourth quarter it was Jonathan Motley and Damian Jones time on the front line, which is hopefully something we won't see much ever again. It's tough. The Suns, look, I asked Monty a couple of questions after the game that he said he said at least one was spot on. I'll take both. One is that their big man depth is not that great. They have a tough time without Dario Saric in that rotation among the big men because they really only have Ayton and Saric this year. They don't have Frank, although he is not great. He's at least a big guy who knows how to play the game of basketball. And then you've got Aaron Baines last year, and the Suns are missing both those guys. So I'm a little worried about the depth at big man, and we saw way too much of it in the preseason. I get that. And we won't see that again in the regular season, but we'll see some of it. And I don't want to see too much of that again. So I'm wondering what the Suns are going to do in the next few days. That today, Jonathan Motley's contract is non-guaranteed. Other players around the league's contracts, they become at least somewhat guaranteed after today. And so you've got a number of players who could be moving teams in the next 5 days. The Suns' season opener is in a few days.
That's why there's no use to get spun up about a backup center that might or might not be on the roster. Like, who cares? You know what I mean? If he does even make it to the roster, the chances of him playing very much are very slim unless there's a dire scenario. It's much like, people getting hyped up about Nico Mannion getting a 2-way contract with the Warriors. And I'm like, yeah, we'll see if he plays at all. And so far in this preseason, he's averaged like 3 minutes a game.
Which is pretty bad when a 2-way player gets 3 minutes a game in preseason. That a guy who was supposed to be a first rounder, that's not so great. At least Motley got his, and Tyshawn Alexander, he's not going to be playing much in the regular season either. I totally get it that the rotations were. I'm just saying that there's a little bit of shallowness on the big men, and there's also a problem with getting to the free throw line. Last year they were 10th in free throws. The one piece they really didn't replace as far as getting to the line was Kelly Oubre. So we'll see who picks up the slack. Obviously, people want it to be DeAndre Ayton. We'll see if that happens. We'll see if Chris Paul helps other guys get to the line more with perfect passes. We'll see how it shakes out.
It's preseason. You play 2 games on the road, which usually favors the home team when it comes to calls, and then 2 games against the Lakers, who have 2 of the biggest superstars in the game, and they're the Lakers who tend to get all the calls. So I'm not going to read a lot into free throw shooting yet either. And when it comes to the big man depth, I think what surprised me the most with that is that Jalen Smith looks more like a backup 4 than a backup center, which changes things a bit because you're likely going to have to rely a lot on Dario playing those minutes, and we've yet to see him. Hopefully he's all right. So I don't know. I don't know that you're going to find some savior in backup big man minutes off of somebody's scrap heap coming up in the next few days before the season starts. I think we're parsing hairs here, splitting hairs here, if that's what we're looking at. I don't think that's make or break before Wednesday's opener.
No, I think they got versatility. From 1 through 5, they got versatility. They don't need a standard big man. They just need somebody to spell DA and give him some minutes on the bench so he can recover, because apparently breathing is very hard right now for him.
Oh,
He's having a
come on,
tough
that was
time.
hilarious.
He's having a tough time. And if we judged everything by preseason, well, hell, Dave, you'd be cut today, because what is this?
Well, now you ruined one of our tweeter deletes. Look, this is a major delete. Let's just say that right now. We'll get into it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, come on now.
I like some of the comments I got on that, though. I like some of the comments on that, because the renovation was Suns versus Phoenix. I'm getting it paid for.
The preseason is preseason for everyone, all right? And and there's a reason for it. And if you listen to the national broadcast at all last night, I tuned in for a few seconds. I was at Fox Sports Arizona most of the time, but JVJ was even in preseason form. So, Jeff Van Gundy. So preseason for everybody across the board. Let's just say that. And speaking, go ahead.
I will say this about Jalen Smith. I didn't think he played particularly well, but I loved his aggressiveness. It didn't feel like he was scared to make a play if he thought there was one, and that's what you want to see from a rookie, understand when to defer to the superstars, but, don't make the moment bigger than it is. It's a preseason basketball game. Do what you need to do to get your groove at this level and see what you can do. And then you fix it and tweak it as you move on.
He's not clearly lost. I mean, sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
I was just say he's not afraid to shoot. I mean, that was very clear in preseason. He's not afraid to shoot, in particular from behind the 3-point line. And I think eventually he finds his legs with that shot.
Yeah, he's the standard rookie off season is you've got summer league where you just get used to a little bit different competition, than different level of athleticism than you had in college. And then you've got a month or 6 weeks of pickup games where you learn your teammates and you learn how that speed goes a little bit. And it's all a slow ramp up. And then you've got some preseason, and then you've got regular season. This is like obviously none of that prior stuff, and then only 4 preseason games, and then boom, we're in. So he is completely lost. He's going to be lost. He's going to get himself turned around on defense. He's fouling he's really good at fouling. That's what his best attribute in preseason has been, fouling. But you expect that. He's a little different than I expected to see. He is a little, obviously his nickname is Sticks, and he certainly looks it. He's got a kind of a big upper body on skinny legs. There's no problem with that. You can have the strongest legs in the world. They don't have to be big. But he's got to learn about his balance and his shifting his hips and stuff like that. And he'll get there. He'll get better throughout the season. But right now, and the reason I didn't mention him on the shallowness of the big men is because I do think he's got the strong potential to get better throughout the year. I'm not as convinced on Damian Jones and Jonathan Motley, for example, getting better throughout the year.
You mentioned Motley one more time, we're going to end this broadcast. I swear. I promise you.
He's an afterthought.
You mentioned Motley in January.
He's going to be like the 15th man. I swear.
You're going to eat that hat.
Motley's not going to be on the roster, all right? I didn't even know the guy was on the roster until I tuned into Fox Sports.
You never even heard of our draft picks, so that doesn't say much.
You know what? One thing I will say also is you made a good point about there not being a summer league this year. And if you remember watching, especially the first couple summer league games for everybody, it's just so fast. Everybody's going at 1,000,000 miles an hour because they're trying to prove that they can play at this level. And that was taken away. And actually, Eddie last night and a couple times on the broadcast, he was talking about a lot of those rookies going too fast. They got to slow down and just let the game come to them. And and sometimes your head gets over your heels, and then you're just out of control. And and that's why the massive amounts of fouls and charges and things of that nature happen. So I think as we proceed through the season, I think we're going to see a significant difference from game 1 to game 40 for Jalen Smith. I do.
Absolutely. Hey, I want to give a shout out to Grace, one of our listeners' daughters. He said that she loves us and wanted a shout out. So there you go.
thanks for listening and watching, Grace. We appreciate you.
Thank you for gracing us with your presence.
Hey.
There's a Saturday morning dad joke for you.
There it is.
I love
There
it.
it is.
Saul, since you've been taking the wheel, anything else you want to do before we go any?
Sorry, man.
I don't want to careen the car off the cliff without your
Goodman
permission.
takes
No,
the
okay.
wheel.
Go ahead. It's
All
your
right.
show. It's your show, Espo. I forgot we were on Espo's show. The Espo
Oh.
show. Is that still running?
Don't you forget it that this is my show.
Nobody knows.
I talked to Monty Williams, and he said that is a great show you've got there. I did, no. 5 burning questions about the preseason is what we have. Don't call your doctor. It's all right. The burning is natural after 4 preseason games. Look at that. We've got graphics.
There we go.
We got graphics. Look at that. 5 burning questions.
There we go.
So Saul, watch out. That fire is close to your face there.
It is.
So the first question coming out of preseason that we need to know is Chris Paul played minimal in the preseason, right? So are you concerned about his health going into the regular season?
I am not. I know he's going to take some games off from time to time. Monty said that it was more precautionary than it was, an actual problem. They just wanted to make sure that they didn't push him, and rightfully so. He's been in the league forever. You don't want to lose him in the preseason. It makes no sense. Let him heal up. Let him be full strength and ready to go. I'm sure something like this would not stop him from playing in the regular season, unless it was just a day-to-day problem consistently. Then they'll probably sit him. But we have to expect that Chris Paul. My expectation is that Chris Paul, outside of like an actual injury. I think load management will be somewhere between 5 to 10 games. I think he's going to play 6 or 7, take a game off. That's kind of my expectation. If he plays 60 games this season, I'm gonna be extremely happy. I think 60 games of Chris Paul is what the expectation should be. After that, it's a bonus. So yeah, I'm not too concerned. He's a veteran. He knows how to get himself ready for the season. He's done it 100 times. Like no concern whatsoever.
Hey, let me tell you one nice takeaway from the Friday night game is that since Chris Paul didn't play, we got a chance to see Javon Carter and Devin Booker. And Devin Booker actually focused on being the point guard, leading the team. And they looked great. They got that 22-7 lead, 38-19 after the end of the first. They still had a 13-point lead at halftime.
Don't forget about Campaign. He was awesome.
Oh no, Campaign did great in the second unit. He really did. And I love his energy. I love how basically one of those two guys, as long as one of those two guys is always on the court, the Suns are scrappy and they're going to get some steals and they're going to force the other team's offense to look a little worse than it should. I love it. That was a tough matchup against the Lakers because LeBron being a big time ball handler for them. I mean, obviously he's a little bigger than Javon and Cam, but gosh, Javon plays great. Javon plays great against LeBron, against anybody basically, because he knows what he's doing. Every year he gets a little bit better. I think that's a good combo in spots, right? You don't want a whole season of Devin Booker being the point guard with Javon Carter as your shooting guard, but it definitely works in spots. And obviously the Suns have a lot of wings that can play around Devin Booker as well. So I am looking forward to it, and I did like to see Devin running the show last night.
Saul, do you run campaigns? Are you his agent? Because you love yourself some Campaign, but
no, I just think he brings a lot of energy to the team. Like he's got a little swag. He can hit the three. He's got some nice sneakiness around the rim. I'm a big Campaign fan. I never really watched him until the bubble last year. I'm a big fan of his for sure.
Well, on the Chris Paul front, though, to me it's not concerning. I believe he played the same number of preseason games last year in OKC. I think it's just simply it's preseason. Like if he misses Wednesday's home opener and season opener, yeah, then it's a concern. But he missed 2 preseason games. He played. He showed what he can do. It's obvious they're building chemistry in practice. And even when he wasn't playing, like you saw last night on Friday night, he's sitting there with DA, talking him through things, pointing out things, talking to Booker. Like, it's not like he wasn't in the arena and wasn't involved. He's there and he's doing things and helping out his teammates. So I'm not concerned that he wasn't on the floor in preseason. I think you're probably right, Saul. We're looking at 5 to 10 games that he misses throughout the season. They're probably staggered. I'm not worried about CP3's health because of the preseason. Now, am I a little concerned because he's 35 years of age and has a lot of mileage? Yes, but there's nothing that came out of the preseason that I was like, oh, that's going to be concerning. That's going to be something that lingers. It's normal training camp aches and pains that you keep veterans out for. It just happens, and I'm not concerned about that at all. If you want to answer that burning question, put it in the chat or tweet us at Sun Solar Panel with the hashtag 5 burning questions, and we will take a look at your responses, maybe respond back as well. So let's move on to question number 2 on the burning questions. We've got fill in the blank, gentlemen. The thing that stood out the most about the Suns preseason was blank. Saul, why don't you start us off on this one?
I mean, it seems like it's so easy to say, but Devin Booker, he's already in midseason form. He looks like he's in a groove. He looks like he's at all-star status already. I mean, he just – everything that Devin Booker does, it's funny. As you watch him more and more and more, he's like one of those rare guys in the league that you just love more and more and more because of all the small things that he continues to do. Last night he was just fantastic with, I think 27 points, and he's just smooth all over the court. He didn't look rushed. And that was the other thing that I liked about this team too, is even though the Lakers made their run in the third quarter, it still felt like the wheels were not falling off, okay, they made their run. Whereas in past years, I think this team would have panicked and they would have, maybe played a little bit out of their character in certain spots to try and make up for some ground. And I think that's because of what Devin Booker brings to the table. I think his leadership has grown, his responsiveness to adversity has grown. And I think just overall his play, you can see it. The way he carries himself on the court is just a little bit different. He got a little fidgety there in the third quarter, and fouling like back-to-back trips. But outside of that, I really love where Devin Booker's at to start the season.
And what I liked too was it didn't feel like he was trying to force his will offensively, in particular on Friday night. He was just playing within the system, getting good shots and making things better for his teammates as well. So that's probably part of the maturity that you mentioned as well. But I'm going to say it, and I don't think it's a preseason overreaction, but somebody will clip this and make fun of me if it doesn't come true. But being Saul Bookman. Yes, Saul is going to mark this and hand it over to our production crew with Fox Sports Arizona and embarrass me at some point. But I believe that Devin Booker will get some MVP votes this year. I mean, that's how good he will look and how big of an impact he will have on this team as they make a playoff run. So you can put it down. I think Booker's going to get MVP votes.
All right.
Okay.
Can I give my
Yes, you can.
Yeah, you don't have to ask. You just go. That's what you usually
I don't know.
do.
I look like Espo is going to number 3 here.
Nope. Go ahead.
My biggest takeaway is that DeAndre Ayton is way out of his comfort zone right now. I know people are going to say that's overreacting. Well, there's a faction that won't say it's overreacting, and there's a faction that says it will. He's a very polarizing player. I get it. But he is way out of his comfort zone right now. He's going to need time to adjust to expectations. He doesn't know what expectations are yet. He just went from high school to 1 year at U of A where they lost in the first round because U of A. And then
why, Dave?
he comes
why, Dave? Like why?
And then he comes to the Suns.
Thanks, Dave.
And there's no expectations for 2 years on the Suns. And he thinks he knows what he's doing, and he doesn't. And he's shocked.
I disagree completely.
Let me finish, and then you can disagree.
Go ahead.
All right. So I saw some body language out there on Friday night. I don't watch for body language, but I saw some. And there was one he just looks, I don't know if it's tired or not disgruntled, but tired or unsure what's going on. But there are times he just stops moving. And I don't know what they had to wave him up the court once on offense. And then there was the sideline, argument between him and Booker. But I think that was all constructive. Look, let me finish before anyone interrupts. It was all constructive. I think he's going to react well to this, and he's going to come out of it. But right now, he's out of his comfort zone.
But that's where growth happens, though, is when a guy's out of his comfort zone.
Go ahead. Sorry, Espo, go ahead.
I'm just saying, you force growth out of somebody when they're out of their comfort zone, and that's what Chris Paul does. And him getting in it a little bit with Devin Booker is a good thing for the faction of people that say he's not aggressive enough. Well, that gets a guy aggressive, and having constructive conversations are a good thing. It's preseason, but I get it. I have no problem if you think he's out of his comfort zone, because that's where a guy becomes better.
My take is I'm going to borrow a line out of Airplane when Kareem Abdul-Jabbar says, you tell your old man to drag Walton up and down the court for 48 minutes in the playoffs and tell me how he feels. And Ayton, I swear, last night there was probably about 10 trips down the court where he didn't even touch the ball, and he would have position on the block. And when you do that multiple times, you just say, you know what, F it, man. I'm busting my hump on this end. I should get at least a touch on this end. And it's very hard. And EJ even talked about it. Being a big man, not being able to touch the ball is hard. You can't get into a flow of the game. You can't get into a groove. And they don't really try to focus on getting him the ball. And I would have thought in the preseason, especially, now's the time to try and force feed him and try to get him some touches down low on the block. It ain't going to be the regular season. That's not when you want to try it. You need to trust your teammates at that point. You need to build that trust in the preseason. I just don't agree that he was awful in this preseason. I feel like he still had a couple good games. He was, still had 20-10, I think, or 21-11 or something like that, or 21-9. And, I think overall, it's going to take some time for him to adjust, but it's also going to be about him yelling at Devin Booker on the sideline and say, hey, man, instead of throwing the ball over here to freaking Javon Carter on the wing for a prayer 3-point shot, why don't you just throw the ball down low to me, because I have one-on-one down low on the block, and typically that should be a mismatch no matter who it is down low. And it's just the Suns just didn't really focus.
Yeah, I mean, I'll qualify.
I'd like to see.
My out of comfort zone.
Well, I wasn't done, Dave. I'm still going.
Oh,
I'm just kidding. Go ahead, Dave.
My out of comfort zone is on the offensive end. Defensively, he's still stellar. He had the opportunity in 4 games to play against Rudy Gobert and against Anthony Davis, and I think he did pretty darn good. So defensively, he's great. It's the offensive. He doesn't quite know what he's doing all the time. That's all. And and like you said, Saul, they're not getting him the ball, but also he's not making it impossible not to get him the ball. He's not really fighting.
I mean, that's part of this. That's absolutely part of this. And I'm glad that maybe you saw him yelling at Devin Booker on the sideline. Now I want to clarify this. At the end of the game, they were laughing and joking with each other too. So it's just one of those things that teams do that, you try to grow with each other and figure out. And, Ayton probably needs to do that from time to time. He probably needs to do that on the court from time to time. You need to see him say, hey, give me the ball and call for it, instead of just put his hand up passive aggressively and then that's it, and then pout about it. No, get in there. We've all seen guys like that in person, playing pickup ball. DeAndre Ayton's one of the best big men in the NBA. He should play like it and act like it on the court.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and look, he was talking earlier this week about how he and CP3 are sitting down and watching film together and working on the game off the court. That's what preseason's about, is working through offense and defensive schemes and trying to understand where you're supposed to be, how to best impose your will. And that's where DA is going to get to. I have no problem with that. And I like that he's uncomfortable if that's the case, because that's important for him.
And Dave, I would completely disagree on the whole take that he's had no pressure on him for the last 2 years. He's the number one pick. He's had pressure since day one. The comparison to Luka has been ridiculously high, and he has to try and live up to that expectation, which is right now, but it's so high that he can't even come close to that. Like there's pressure on him on a year-to-year basis. You know, he knows that.
There was external pressure on him the last 2 years. I 100% agree with it, but the team was fully in his court, and they were being given him positive reinforcement and all that stuff.
Well,
this year, the team is expecting a lot.
Monty was hard on him last year too.
Monty is the constructive criticism guy, and Ricky Rubio, all positive constructive criticism. Now he's going to get a little bit more aggressive feedback from CP3, and Devin Booker's going to be feeling it as well, and that's okay. I'm saying this is all a good thing. This is all a good thing. He needs it, but he's got to come out of this funk.
I think you're going by body language as opposed to what's actually being said, and because we're not in those those confines in the locker room or even on
body language is everything. Have you been on Sun's Twitter lately?
I know. I'm fluent in sign language. I know all about body language. Come on now.
I love that Dave got his doctorate in body language over the last week. Dr. Dave King analyzing the body language of DeAndre Ayton here on the Sun Solar Panel. Also, we are the bastion
the king of body language.
We are the bastion of pop culture references.
Can you read my body language now?
Doctor Body Language.
Yeah, if he were a doctor of body language, he would have turned off his camera a while ago. We're looking at how we've been reacting to some of that.
Turn off your cameras.
I also love that Saul is bringing the pop culture references that hit home with the kids as he talks about the early 80s movie Airplane here on the show.
Rao hates me, so it's all good.
No, Rao hates everything. All he's trying to do is get a rise out of people. So good for you. You got named on the show.
Yeah,
don't worry, on, buddy.
Congrats.
Woo! Don't worry. He
took you about 20
know your
comments
name.
to do that.
He called you Sal. So, can I answer the fill in the blank too? Am I allowed to answer?
Sure, go for it, buddy.
Just figured Dave had to ask, so I should ask too.
Hey, Espo.
Yes.
What's the thing that stood out most to you?
Why, thank you. It's good to be a part of this. It's Langston Galloway. I got property on Langston Lagoon for each and every one of you for a small fee. All right. And if you bought into Bender Island, if you were on Kaminsky Cove, come join me at Langston Lagoon, the newest of the Sun Solar Panel properties. You can hang out and enjoy deep splashes in the ocean. Look, Langston Galloway impressed the heck out of me. He looks like he's going to be a huge value for a veteran minimum contract. The guy has no conscience. He'll shoot from anywhere. He's got that EJ streak in him where he could drop 20 plus in a quarter if he gets hot, and nobody's going to bat an eye. That's how well Langston Galloway shoots, and that's what this team needs.
He's got a little Eddie House in him for sure.
I was saying Eddie Johnson, but Eddie House as well.
Oh, I know.
It seems like that name Eddie just it leads to shooting like that. But yeah, Eddie House, Eddie Johnson, Langston Galloway, they're all cut from the same cloth. If they get the ball behind the 3-point line, they're going to shoot it. All right. And
Eddie House is a good comp for him. I like that.
Well, and Eddie House dropped what was that, 50 something in a game in the NBA. So I'm not saying Langston's going to do that, but he's got that kind of streaky shooting that excites me. And this bench and this team has been missing that in the past. Is that guy that can be a sharp shooter, that can go on those streaky scoring runs. And I think it's perfect to put around some of the guys that are here. When he gets a chance to play with CP3, when he gets a chance to play with Booker, he's going to get extremely open looks, and he will make a lot of those. I think he solidified himself as the guy that's going to get a lot of those backup guard minutes in this rotation. It was between him and Etuan Moore in the preseason, and Langston Galloway stood up and said, nope, this is me. I got this covered. Don't you worry about that. And that excited me the most. So if you want to come and you want to look at property, I've got plenty of beachfront property in Langston Lagoon. Question number 3. It's getting hot in here. And it's not just Dave and Saul arguing. It actually is the burning questions here. What is your biggest overreaction going into the season after preseason? Dave, you can start this time.
Oh, me go first. So you're asking what is my biggest overreaction? My
Yes.
biggest overreaction is worrying about Jonathan Motley. I'm worried about guys like Jonathan Motley getting way too many minutes out there. Nothing against you, man, but you are not ready for this team.
Now, Dave is a motley fool. All right, we got that one. Saul, your overreaction?
My biggest overreaction is I'm going to say Javon Carter being the backup point guard. I think in the long term, it'll end up being campaign. Okay, I'm campaigning for campaign, whatever you want to call it. I just think that he provides you a little bit more oomph on the offensive end. Javon's a dog on the defensive end. You got to give him that for sure. But I just like the way campaign it really sparks this team, and I think in the long run he's going to be the preferred number 1 backup point guard.
Yeah, Javon Carter's going to be the backup too.
No, Langston Galloway, baby. Get on the boat, Dave. Come on.
And poor Etuan Moore didn't get any minutes Friday because Monty wanted to see other guys playing.
Yeah, well, look, I think everybody is going to assume my overreaction is Langston Galloway, but you're wrong. Because that's not an overreaction. That's appropriate reaction. But I think my overreaction is the little voice in the back of my head that's saying, maybe we're overhyping this team because you see 0-4 in the preseason. They didn't look particularly great against Utah. And the other part of me is like, shut up, it's preseason. And then, but that little voice and that same little voice saying, maybe there's something more going on with Dario than we're aware of, which is immensely concerning because that second unit needs Dario Saric to help facilitate and to be a kind of a guiding force for that second unit. And I'm overreacting that. I'm giving it a little bit to that voice. And I hope it's just preseason overreaction.
So the Suns have the same training staff that they had a year ago, and I remember being surprised at how patient they are with players with injuries. Remember that it was always day to day. Seems to take longer than you would otherwise think, and so I do think they're being super cautious with everybody. I'm hoping that's the case with Dario, and he'll be fine next week. But they definitely don't tell us all the details. That's for sure.
I think some of the comments in the chats are actually really good right now. The biggest overreaction, the shuffling bench lineup and inconsistency. Some others have said Jalen Smith dunking hard and giving me flashbacks of Amari. I remember on draft night, some people were like, oh, they were making that comparison. That's not even a close comparison whatsoever.
Wasn't that comparison Dave when we showed the highlights?
I don't think so. Did I?
I mean, of course, we haven't seen the Suns play.
We can play it back. Yet, I'm sure Saul will put a package together to remind me about it.
Well, now that we've mentioned
it. Nathaniel in the chat saying, for shame, Espo. I think that is an overreaction. Everybody knows it's shameful when I open my mouth on this show. So look,
shame.
There's always something to overreact to in preseason. It's all right because it all starts for real on Wednesday night. So we can stop overreacting to meaningless basketball and overreact to early season basketball, which is exciting. So moving on to the fourth burning question here. Who is the starting lineup and who is the sixth man on this team? Saul, what are you projecting to be the starting lineup?
So the starting lineup is fairly easy. It's essentially the four, and I'm going to go with Jay Crowder to start the season. I think Jay Crowder, as well as Chris Paul, will miss some time, just load management and whatnot. So Cam Johnson will get that nod. So I kind of gave away my sixth man. I think Cam Johnson will be the sixth man. I just think that provides them a nice with Dario. That's a nice 7-man rotation right there. Then you add in the campaign and Javon, and this team's looking really solid from top to bottom, more than I can remember in the last couple of years. So that my starting five would obviously be those gentlemen: Chris Paul, Devin Booker. Then you got Jay Crowder and DeAndre Ayton and Mikal Bridges.
Dave, do you disagree there at all?
No, I don't. I think that's definitely Jay Crowder is that fifth starter, and Mikal Bridges obviously is starting his first of 10 years as the starting small forward for the Suns. Right next, he's perfect. Those guys are perfect with Chris Paul and Devin Booker and Mikal Bridges. Jay Crowder is great in that he's got some bulk to him, so he can, even though he's only 6'6", he can play like a power forward. It's perfect for this league right now. And then, of course, you got DeAndre. So coming off the bench as the sixth man, I would say if you put the sixth man being the most important bench player, then that's rather than the one who necessarily comes off the bench first. I would say Dario Saric. To me, that is the most important guy. We've seen it in preseason. Those guys are really struggling for a playmaker, and Dario isn't going to rack up assists. He's not going to score a ton of points, but he's going to do all the things to keep things going. As Monty called it last year, he's a connector, which means he's really good in that 0.5 offense and keeping the ball moving and helping guys make quick decisions, putting them in position to make quick decisions. And that is really important. So I think he's the sixth man. What about you, Espo?
Looking at the starting lineup, I think you guys are correct for out of the gates. I think Jay Crowder is going to start at power forward, but I think eventually Cam Johnson winds up in that starting lineup. I think that's we've heard Monty this preseason talk about how Jay's worked with the starters and that second unit and that, basically implying he's flexible. I think we're going to see at a point where they feel they want to go back to that lineup, that starting lineup that worked for them so well in the bubble. And I think Crowder's got the kind of mindset that he's not going to care when he comes into the game. He's going to come in and do what it takes to play quality basketball for this team and help them win. And we've talked about it in the past. It's great whoever is on the court to start, but it really all that matters is who are the five guys ending a game for you, and that's going to depend on who has the hot hand that night. What situation are you going into in those final minutes in a game? And Monty isn't going to be afraid to run the guys out he feels best about night in, night out, depending on what's going on in the game. It's going to be situational, and I think Crowder and Cam Johnson will be interchangeable in those situations. So I'm with you. I think Crowder starts to begin the season, but I think we're going to see Cam Johnson get some run there for sure. In terms of sixth man and most important, it's obviously Langston Galloway. No, I think Dario is going to be key offensively for the Suns' second unit, as Dave talked about, just facilitating things. But defensively, that's going to be a big question mark if he's your backup center. Impact-wise, I think six man's going to change. Each night is going to be a different guy off that bench, because you're not looking at just one guy that's a true six man. We're not looking at a Lou Williams or any one guy that's going to score in volume, which is usually what you look at in particular when you're talking about a potential six man of the year candidate. The Suns don't have a guy like that on the bench, so the six man's probably going to rotate between the likes of in importance of Dario, Cam Johnson when he's coming off the bench, a guy that gets hot shooting wise, whether it be Javon Carter or Langston Galloway or something like that. Some nights Javon's going to be the most important guy on that bench because of his defense. So I know that's kind of a cop out, but I think it's gonna rotate there. So question 5, and it's the one everybody knows is coming. I mean, when preseason ends, you got to make a prediction, right? And 538, the number nerds of the internet have crunched whatever algorithm they use and have determined that the Phoenix Suns are going to finish 42-30 and be fifth in the West. Now, it's tough to argue with the number nerds because I don't understand their equations, but and all they care about is
that
the
doesn't
numbers.
stop most of the internet from arguing with number nerds.
But Dave is a body language expert, so it's important to turn to him to understand
why
what he thinks the body language says that they're going to be this.
I tell you what.
What is the body language? The BLI. What does the body language index say?
The body language index. There was 42 positive body language moves by DeAndre Ayton last night versus 30 negative. So that's obviously going to be their record this year. No, I think the over under on that 42 wins is pretty good. Obviously, the West is stacked. Those wins are because they do the, I don't know how many simulations, somewhere between 1,000 and 10,000 or whatever. It's gonna crunch everyone in the middle. So everybody in the highest is 46, the lowest is 41 as far as playoff makers. It can be any of those, and the Suns can be anywhere in that. The key is going to be how they finish in the clutch. CP3 is one of the best clutch players in the NBA, and Devin Booker obviously knows how to make shots in the clutch as well. So that's what I'm looking forward to, is the Suns winning more games than they should because they're so good in the last 5 minutes. That's what I want to see.
All right, Saul.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. I actually was asked to make a prediction on somebody else's podcast, and I actually said 42-30 before I saw the 538 thing. So I think 42-30 sounds just about right. You know, it takes in the calculation of Chris Paul missing a few games and things not going right one night, and so I don't know. I think that obviously the difference would be they could get to 45, 48 if DeAndre Ayton plays at an all-star level. If he doesn't play at an all-star level, I think 42-30 sounds just about right. I think he'll be fighting for anywhere from a 3 to a 6 seed. I'd probably a 4 to a 6 seed. 3, depending on how other teams fall apart. Because there's going to be a team that falls apart. You just know it's going to happen.
So Saul going bold, saying they'll be anywhere from 3 to 6.
It'll be somewhere between the 1 to 8 range,
and anywhere from the 1 to 10 range, somewhere in there.
1 to 15 in the West, I think.
They might be not. I don't know.
They'll be in the top 15 in the West. Yeah, there we go.
Maybe one of the top 30 teams in the NBA. I think sounds like it should be good there. Look, I know the number nerds in Vegas say 38.5 is where this line is, and I am hitting the over hard. Like I'm not a gambling man per se, but if I were to drop some money on that, I'd be going over all day, every day. I think this is a 43 win team this year, 43-29. I think they're a 3 or 4 seed, depending on how the rest of the West shakes out. Look, that's like 1 spot difference there. I can give you that kind of a range, unlike Saul. I'm going to say the 3 to 4 seed in the West, as long as injuries don't play a major part in this year. Obviously, that changes everything, and I know there's a lot of people wanting to smack me across the face through the screen right now for even bringing up the thought of injuries, but that's the reality of it. As long as there's no injuries, I'm saying 43 wins and a 3 or 4 seed, which gives you home court advantage in a year that doesn't mean jack squat likely. So
what's the cutoff for disappointment? Is it the 6th seed? Like if they get the 6th seed, are people upset?
It's the
not
top
me.
8.
No, I think you just you make it into the top 6 would be great, so you don't have to do the play-in tournament. Top 10 would be great, so that the Suns are actually qualifying for the play-in. I'm good. I'm looking forward to a high seed.
Do you consider the play-in part of the playoffs?
No, just to win it. Yeah, to make it into the playoffs through the play-in tournament is fine enough for me.
You heard that, ASU fans. The first 4 doesn't count either.
No,
there you go.
It does not. That's basically the first losers. Like that's just the way that works. Let's be honest. No, look, you've got to make it into the actual playoffs.
Yeah.
You don't invest the kind of money you did across the board into the roster, into the facilities, all those things to wind up, in a play-in situation where you lose and you do not get to the actual playoffs. If you're not playing a first-round series, this is a failure of a year. And again, with the caveat of injuries change that, but outside of that, it is a failure of a season if you are not in the first round of the NBA playoffs.
I agree. Totally agree. Now, if they came in as the 8th seed after doing a play-in and they played the Lakers in the first round, I think I would feel a little differently at that point. Like, damn, they could have been a 5 or a 6 seed. Instead, they're playing the Lakers, and I mean, most likely you're going to get bounced in the first round. So, it's like I think I'd be a little bit more disappointed on that one. I fully expect them to be a 4 or a 5 seed. That's where I think that they're slotted. I think that's where they're going to finish. I'm hoping for that 4, so that way they have home court advantage in front of maybe some fans at that point, because you never know what things are going to look like once we get to April and May and June. Maybe things are going to be a little bit different in this country. I hope so, because I know people want to check out that arena and they deserve to check out that arena. It's been over a year since we've been to a basketball game, man. It's
look, a decade without playoff basketball and then finally making it and not being able to have fans sounds about right. And the way things have gone here in Phoenix. So, that is our 5 burning questions for the preseason. If you have answers that you want to share with any of them, about any of them, hit us up on social at Suns Solar Panel on the tweets. You can message us there, and maybe or maybe not, we'll try to respond, I think. So. That's right. It's opening night coming up on Wednesday as the Suns take on the Dallas Mavericks out at, what are we calling it, PHX Arena right now, and it'll be an 8:30 tip, that late start. For
the arena who shall not be named.
It's late, which means you're gonna get something special. You're gonna get Sun Solar Panel After Dark. That's right. We're going to come to you after the game and after Tom and Tom on Fox Sports Arizona. You can hop on the Fox Sports Arizona Facebook page or the Sun Solar Panel YouTube page and have a little fun with us as we break down that first game of the season. We'll be in that time slot that used to be Carson Daly's, or if you're even older, Bob Costas's on late night television. The one that if you fell asleep with the TV on and happened to wake up in the middle of the night was on.
The
late show. The
late show.
Yeah, I actually had to take work off so I could sleep in that morning, so I could be awake for the post game show that we're going to be doing.
Damn, work doesn't give you Christmas Eve off?
Well, I got to take the 23rd off so I can get to sleep that day, just to be awake to watch the game and for our post game show. Look, I'm thinking I'm going to get the smoking jacket. We're going to go all in on Suns after.
Let's do it. I got a robe. It doesn't fit, but I'm gonna wear it.
Oh God, we don't want to see that, man.
It's all silk, no shirt. Here we go, baby.
Everyone's got to be in the gray sweats. That's all that matters.
We're basically going to be doing a morning show for some of you, especially if you're the East Coast fan.
Oh,
It'll be fun. We'll break down everything.
I got a shower cap. Let's go.
In the chat says, please never say after dark again. Nope. We're going to say it a lot on Wednesday because it's Sun Solar Panel After Dark. All right, get used to it. We're gonna have some fun with that.
If the chat has a better idea for a name, I am all for it, because the Pac-12 has Pac-12 After Dark.
Yeah, and you know what?
Late show with the Sun Solar Panel.
Come on, chat. I know you guys can be creative. Give us something in the chat. Let's go.
I feel like what we need is a local band to also be there for the show, that we just have them in a box there, and every once in a while they just play a song for us. I'll bring some cards to hold like a late night host. It'll be great. We're gonna break down the game after you watch it on Fox Sports Arizona Wednesday night as the Suns take on the Dallas Mavericks in the season opener. So
after the post game show, I just want to remind everybody, it's not after the game, it's after the post game show. So once you don't see it on Fox Sports Arizona anymore, you can come over to us and we'll let you vent.
We're like the after dinner mint that comes after Tom and Tom. All right, we're when it gets weird.
James
all right?
Gordon.
We're the
James
after
Corden of that,
party, all right,
Yeah.
that you go to after you've already been to the club. Then
Or
you
more
go
like
to the
Craig Ferguson, probably. Yeah.
Son's Confessions. I don't like that. I do not like that name.
Oh, I like it. I like it.
Weirder on Wednesday
Solar
night.
panel switched on, actually. Yes.
We have a new segment here on the show. It is called Tweet or Delete. We're gonna show you what is. Oh, look at that! Saul coming with the graphics. Even. Tweet
There
or
you go.
delete. The concept is simple. We will show you a tweet, gentlemen. You will then tell us: would you actually tweet this, or would you delete it before you sent it out to the masses? And with the first tweet or delete, we look at it and let's throw that up on the screen as we actually made it visual for you. And it says, it's a complete travesty the Suns aren't unveiling their Valley uniforms in court opening night on national television. Gentlemen, would you tweet or delete this?
I would delete it. Jeez, come on. No, they're gorgeous uniforms, and the court is great as well. But I love this new court that I just saw last night. So on Friday, so you've got to promote. That is just really, really cool. Lots of purple and orange. It really stands out. That should be the opening night court, and then the alternate is that one, the Fun Valley one.
Come on, you guys.
I would tweet it actually, because you had all this hype about the new uniforms in the off season. Like, why not showcase it on opening night? What are you waiting for? Like, yeah, absolutely tweet it.
Second night.
I hit tweet faster than I can type that damn thing if it's on my account. Look, yeah, Dave obviously doesn't work in marketing, and I have the last half of a decade. And you have to capitalize when people are excited, right? There's not going to be more excitement than the first time that Chris Paul steps on the court as a Phoenix Sun. And if you're looking at it, and the Valley is supposed to be this brand this year that's supposed to get everybody excited, roll it out opening night. And I get why they're not, because they want those images of CP3 and Booker with suns across their chest on the first night. But if everything you put into teasing this year, all your media day photos are in those new beautiful uniforms, embrace it, roll out the Valley on opening night, and go big when you stick it to the Mavericks. I tweet it, and I don't care what
It is going to be fun. It is going to be fun. The game, no matter what, going against that Mavericks and the Suns do well on opening nights. You're right. Probably that is the time to really go in on that new uniform, because you don't know if they're going to win or lose starting when the games actually start playing. So it could be this. Hopefully, the highlight of the season isn't going to be opening night. Let's just say that.
I love that they took peer pressure just to get Dave to fooled real quick. Yes.
No. I still don't want to do it. I'm just saying, if you're going just on marketing, let's hope that's not the high of the season.
Who brought the good news bear? Somebody give him some honey. Jeez.
Let's go on to the second in tweet or delete. CP3 is the second best coach on the Phoenix Suns bench this year. Tweet or delete. So let's start with you.
Delete. I mean, Chris Paul's a good on-court presence, and he's got a lot of leadership, and he's definitely gonna educate guys on the court. But that kind of undermines what the guys are doing in the individual work day after day after day, and hours upon hours, and research, and trying to help these guys get to where they need to be. So I'm gonna say no. Delete it.
I'm gonna say tweet it, because he'll be like the player development coach that DeAndre Ayton needs the most. Mark Bryant's been great on teaching him big man stuff down low, and Chris Paul is going to be probably the most likely person to teach him how to focus in the right ways on the court. So I'd tweet it. I think it's good. I definitely think so.
I delete it. It's Langston Galloway. That's going to be my retort to everything. Now, I'd have to think about this one, because CP3's impact on DeAndre Ayton and Devin Booker is going to be immense in the way he approaches the game, in the way he views the game on the court, and he's going to teach them a lot. But when you have Monty Williams and that staff, I think it's tough to assume that it's semi-insulting, quite frankly, to assume he's the second best coach on that bench. So I likely would delete this one. And let's move to the last one.
I feel like there's going to be a seminal moment in this season where Chris Paul is going to get after DA and we're all going to see it. And then maybe either in that game or later in the season, DA is going to have that game where maybe he dunks on somebody and Chris Paul just goes nuts and it's just like pushes them. And I'm like, I think if we have that moment, it's going to be mass chaos on Twitter because everybody's going to be like, there it is. We've been waiting for this for 3 years. You know what I mean?
Dave will spend 20 minutes breaking down the body language for you after.
Yes. Dr. Body Language.
So
Dr. Body Language.
Previewed the third tweet or delete earlier in the show, but here's the third one. Would you tweet _, Suns versus Phoenix coming up?
Woo! I had one thing on my mind.
Not only delete it, delete your account too. It hits over.
Oh.
Dave obviously would tweet it because it was a rim tweet from Friday night when he was in the building at the game. I'd tweet it for entertainment.
But I love Suns Twitter for being all over that thing. That is awesome. Yeah. Nobody let that one go.
I would retweet it, that's for sure.
That's almost as good as Espo's Chris Paul take.
Yeah, it's almost as good as this one too. Hey. Tweet and delete.
I tweet it again. I'll probably retweet it multiple times this season because I think that's going to be a theme. Yes, that is my face on Jim Carrey, if you're wondering. For those of you listening, it's I said me when the refs don't give Bill respect at all, and then it's a gif of my face on Jim Carrey from Liar Liar. So there you go. For those listening on the podcast, we don't want to leave you out on the inside jokes. So
there you go.
So there you go. So that is tweet or delete. We'll bring it back later in the season. We want to hear from you. Let us know. Would you tweet those or delete those at Suns Solar Panel on Twitter? So let's move into Saul's favorite moment of every show. It's Imagine This, and I cannot get the song from Willy Wonka out of my head when you show this graphic. It's in there all week long.
Which song? Which song? The Tunnel
in
song?
A world of pure imagination.
Oh, I think of We Have No, or the Rowing song. That's the one I always think of.
You just got me to sing on the show, which means we lost every single listener interview.
I think of the grandpa that I don't think a song. I think of the grandpa who was laying in bed for 20-some years, but as soon as you mention a chocolate factory, he's on his feet and dancing.
Yeah,
that's what I think of when I think of Charlie.
I guess the doctors didn't try that in those 20.
Yeah, it only took a candy.
It only took some chocolate to get Uncle Joe out of his bed.
Grandpa
what a
Joe.
lazy POS. I mean, really, Uncle Joe.
Right, 20 years.
In the history of cinema, it's Uncle Joe and Pam Beesly from The Office, the two most overrated good characters that were actually
delete.
Evil.
Pam is awesome. Delete.
Pam is awful. Her and Jim are terrible. Like
they're awful. What? They're like the worst people ever.
Oh,
I watch The Office like every night before I go to bed, and I've seen it like 6 times over, and I cannot help but just hate Pam Beesly for being so selfish. She cost my man his dreams, but he let her have hers. It's just she's like the worst.
Oh my God. Yeah. Maybe you guys are taking this too seriously. Next, we're going to hear a Friends take.
I got some Friends takes.
Here's a hot take for you about The Office. That show is uncomfortable to watch now. Like it's uncomfortable. So says Jay in the chat says, "Okay, I hate Saul and Espo now. I'm glad it took this long." Do we have an Imagine This, or are we just going to talk about?
Imagine This is more of like almost our 6th burning question. Which needs to happen more? Chris Paul needs to retain his second-team All-NBA status this season for the Suns to be successful, or DeAndre Ayton has to be a borderline All-Star for this team to really get to another level.
Look, it depends on what we're defining success as. I don't
to be a 3 seed. Which one of those two needs to happen?
To make the playoffs, neither of them have to happen. But to make a 3 seed and push the upper echelon of the West, DeAndre Ayton has to reach his full potential. That's what has to happen here.
So I think DeAndre Ayton's full potential is to be a top 10 player in the NBA. He doesn't have to do that. I think what Saul said is him being deserving of all-star or all-NBA status is what is needed for the Suns to be a 3 seed this year, for sure. I think they make the playoffs if he's the same DA as a year ago, just 70 games worth, and I think they are a contender if he becomes his full self. But he's still only 22 years old. I think he'll make strides this year. He'll have a more full year of games. I mean, we're knocking on wood right now that he plays more games, and he's going to be better, and he's going to be borderline all-star because of the numbers he puts up and the impact he has offensively as well as defensively. I definitely think so.
Right now, DA is more, a poor man's Tim Duncan than he is he is AD. You know what I mean? And when you watch AD last night and the flexibility he gives you on offense to shoot from the perimeter inside, and he's just as big and tall as DA, like that's what you need DA to get to at some point. Like, and I don't know if he's going to come close to that this year, but that doesn't mean, I mean, there's a big gap to me between AD and then the rest of the other bigs in the NBA.
Yeah.
Joel Embiid has flashes, but then he gets in his own head and he kind of disappears from time to time. DA can be that second best big man in the league, and that's good enough to take you to a whole nother level. It's just, can he do it? Can he get through that? And I hope Chris Paul helps him out.
Oh, hold on. You're glossing over the biggest statement you made since your Pam take here. How poor exactly is this man that he's a poor man Tim Duncan? Like, I mean, I'm a big DA stan, but like I'm a poor man. Tim Duncan.
In terms of like the way his game is, right? He's close to the basket right now. He's not from the perimeter. You know what I mean? He's hitting his his little hooks and his turnaround jump shots and stuff like that. He's more close to the basket within 15 feet, like Tim Duncan was in pretty much his entire career.
And defensively, he's more impactful defensively than offensively.
Exactly. So I don't feel like I'm that far off. Jeez, man.
No, as far as profile, that's like saying it's not as bad as Hakeem Warwick being a poor man's Amari Stoudemire, but it's definitely in that same realm where the skill sets is what you're talking about.
Look, Hakeem Warwick was a poor man's Hakeem Warwick. All right. I'm not putting Amari's name anywhere near Hakeem Warwick's name. Let's not do that here.
Let's hope Jalen Smith isn't a poor man's Hakeem Warwick.
Look, oh God, let's not say that. Let's be honest though. When you look at it, if CP3 just gives you what you got from Ricky Rubio last year, I think this team makes the playoffs in its quality. But you really need DA to take that step. Like he has to go from good last year to almost great this year, and he should be able to do it. I mean, he missed 25 games due to the suspension and then numerous games due to injury. If he can just stay on the floor and grow with CP3, you think that step should be inevitable here. Well, I do. Obviously, half of Suns Twitter doesn't, but I think that's an inevitable step here, and that's what you're going to need. You're going to, because you can trust CP3. You know that Book's going to be in the discussion as one of the best guards in the league. But who's the third guy? And the only guy on the roster that really has that potential to step up and be in the upper echelon is DeAndre Ayton. And that's no knock on Mikal Bridges. I think Mikal is going to be continue to be one of the best lockdown defenders. And he's going to improve offensively, but he's not going to take that step where you go, oh, Mikal Bridges is part of a big three. The guy that could do that is DeAndre Ayton, and you need it if you're going to contend in the Western Conference.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head. When they talk about CP3 and his impact on DA, I also do think that Devin Booker is also by association with Chris Paul will take his leadership to another level as well. And I think those two really kind of doubling up on DA to try and get him to another level is what's going to be needed. And let's not confuse this. The culture is starting to change within this organization for the first time in a long time. That's also because of James Jones, but Devin Booker is a big part of that. And, he talked about the culture the other day.
We have to build this foundation, make this make this organization something that people, want to come and enjoy. I remember him telling me that, make this a place that people want to be a part of. And now, a year later, you come with having a Hall of Fame guard, Chris Paul, wanting to join you, Jay Crowder coming here. So I think, from an organizational standpoint, that's a big plus for us. Or having people see what's going on here, seeing what's building, what's forming, and want to be a part of it. So I think that's good for us in here and the fans out there to see that Phoenix is a destination that, people want to call home.
Yeah, I think that just speaks to the mindset of where these guys are at, more importantly than anything else. And we have 4 days before the season tips off. Like we should really enjoy the fact that we are relevant right now as we speak, and we have people's attention, and in that the Suns are in a position to where they can make some noise this year. And I hope that continues during the season. I expect it to. And I'm really excited to see what this season has in store for the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, hats off to James Jones and Monty Williams, because the culture doesn't start to change without those two guys. And Devin Booker obviously is a big part of it as well. By the way, a few people in the chat, Buck Tug, Espo is a poor man's Jim Carrey, and then blah, 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 saying Dave's a poor man's Santa.
I don't even want to know what I'm a poor man of. I really don't.
You haven't been here long enough for them to give you a poor man status. So, by the way, I want to get. I know we're towards the end here, but I want to get one Flaming Baller mailbag question in, because it's from Jim Rose Circus, one of our dedicated listeners, a man who's been with us since the very beginning, and he wanted to know, how many Suns does it take to screw in a light bulb? He came with the hard-hitting questions, and my answer simply is, it depends on which roster we're talking about, which season.
Yeah. Speaking of rosters in which season, just imagine that it's really literally 2 years ago that James Jones inherited a roster that won 19 games. And it's been just a year and a half since he started changing over that roster. I think we've got to hats off to James Jones, who's never been a GM before. Remember, he got a lot of crap from national media for not knowing anybody in anyone else's front office. We focused on the fact that nobody called him, congratulating him. He didn't call other people to introduce himself. He just kind of waited out the season, that 19-win season that the roster was already done before he started. And then he just methodically made changes. The first offseason, he said, I want young vets. I want guys who will help build these 22-year-olds into a team that's competitive. And he did that, bringing in Dario and bringing in Frank and bringing in other guys that were in the 24 to 26-year-old range. And then this year, they're taking that next step, just as he predicted, and they're bringing in Chris Paul and Jay Crowder. I mean, this went exactly as James Jones wanted it to go from day one.
If he plays his cards right, you got 2 years with Chris Paul, and you set yourself up for the potential next step. And that's probably going to be a super max for Devin at that point, and then DA, depending on what's going on with him. You got to make that decision here within the next year or two. And there's a
Same
lot
with
of things.
Mikal. Those two are in the same off season.
Exactly.
And if Jeremy Grant gets $20 million a year, we've got some big contract extensions for both Mikal and DeAndre coming.
Yeah.
For sure, but Devin Booker's the cornerstone of that, right? And so even if you had to lose one of those guys, you would think that because of the reputation that this organization would have at that point, maybe they could attract other guys as well. So
yeah, but let's not get ahead of ourselves or over our skis. It's a while for that, and we've got Suns basketball coming up. If you want to get your questions on the show, either join us in the chat on YouTube or Facebook while we're live. Tweet us at Sun Solar Panel, or you can call or text at 480-382-8417. That's 480-382-8417, the Flaming Ballers hotline.
Sneaking in the numbers right there. I didn't know that was coming up. I would have a graphic for you guys.
That would have been nice to have it as a graphic, I think.
next week. By the way, Perplexed Damage says Saul is a poor man's Shaft. Shut your mouth, Perplexed Damage. We're talking about Saul, all right? Anyways, yeah, I went there.
I see what you did there. I see what you did.
Just a reminder, coming up Wednesday, 8:30 p.m., you can head over to Fox Sports Arizona. You've got the Suns versus the Mavericks. Tune in at 8 for Tom and Tom on Suns Live. And then after the Suns Live post-game show with Tom and Tom, you can join us back here.
What is this?
Whatever the heck
It's going to be like midnight or so.
The Suns solar
Basically.
panel eclipse or Sun solar panel after dark. Whatever we're going to go with, we'll be here.
The total
midnight sunrise.
Well, we don't know. Whatever we're going to call it, we'll be here after the post-game show to either celebrate a victory or help you get you over whatever happened on the court.
That's was private hotline 1-900.
Yeah.
Call Espo.
I'm not even going to acknowledge whatever Dave is saying. I wish I still had the mute button power, but Saul now has that. So that is another episode of the Sun Solar Panel in the books for Dave King. Where you let everybody know where they can find you, Dave.
At Dave King NBA and on brightsideofthesun.com as well.
For all your Phoenix versus Suns hot takes.
Get ready.
Hey, man. I got no defense.
The Carmel Thunder from down under, if you're watching, he's in the box down under.
He's in the box down below.
He's there. The Saul Bookman. You can find him at Saul_Bookman. Or I'm sure somebody will eventually start a parody at at a Carmel Thunder account, so you can find Saul there. You can always
made it if somebody has a burner for you.
It's true. You can always find me at the name that's always over my shoulder because I'm that vain. It's at Espo on Twitter and the show at Sun Solar Panel. Make sure to follow Fox Sports Arizona on all the channels, on all the social channels, as they will get you everything you need in terms of Suns news and highlights between now and Wednesday. So for Saul, for Dave, I'm Greg Esposito. We'll talk to you on Wednesday night after the season opener here on the Sun Solar Panel.
Yeah, you can't hold me down. Yeah, how you like me now? You want beef, then have a call. Looks like bling blow, ayy. Yeah, you can't hold me down. Yeah, how you like me now? You want beef, then have a call. Looks like bling blow, ayy.